And boom, according to that, I'm live. Welcome, 2022. Good to see you all. And Happy New Year. 正月おめでとうございます。今年もよろしくお願いします。Have a good, wishing everyone a Happy New Year. Year of the Tiger. Of course, Japan is kind of in this weird system. It's not actually according to the Chinese astrological calendar, the New Year. That's not until Chinese New Year, Lunar New Year. But of course, Japan switched to the Western calendar with Chinese astrology. So we get to do it a few months early as a result here. But yeah, it's been a fairly quiet week, although a nice chance to sort of reflect on the year. I hope everybody's managed to have a good break, an enjoyable Christmas, and an enjoyable over-year break. Yeah, it's been very, very quiet for me, frankly. I've been enjoying having a few days off work. It's been very quiet. I've been eating too much food and not exercising, so we'll have to fix all of that when we get back. Yeah, very happy New Year to everyone. I do feel like, actually, 2020 was, I don't like the idea. I think people always believe that the current, the present is worse than the past, which I think is objectively usually not the case. But 2020 was objectively a pretty rough year, and I think 2021, as much as everyone wants to always be negative about everything, there was actually quite a lot of good things, and there's a lot of things on quite a good trajectory right now, which makes me think 2021 was challenging, obviously, in many ways, not least of which the fact that we were all locked in our homes for most of the year. I mean, that's objectively not a good thing, and that's kind of where I was certainly at the entire year. But I do feel like, the upside is that the only way we can go from here is up, right? And I really think that there's a lot I am excited about for 2022, which is partly what I want to talk about today, as well as just general stuff going on in the world, in Japan, in the world, and to talk to you all in the comments. Remember, as always, do what all of you beautiful people already know what to do and are doing. I see Odie Jr. did it. Just say my name in the comments. It will flash orange. I will, in between topics, I will come and talk. I'll respond to comments. I'll take up requests for topics and so on if I'm able to talk about it. But yeah, it's been, I guess, a nice chance to look back on 2021. I did that a little bit last week, but really a good chance to look forward. And I actually I'm looking forward to this year for many reasons, things I'm about to talk about. But yeah, I think it's a good time. Anyway, great to see so many people rolling in. Let's see who's in here. Say hello to everyone. We've got Quinn Rankid, Mr. Cordy Chep. Great to see you all. Happy New Year. Andrea Moboya is, yes, early start tomorrow. Happy New Year. I know it'll be easier. I think it gets easier for you when daylight saving finally ends. So, yeah, I appreciate you logging in late. Good to see you there, Andrea Moboya. We got one Johnson, Rocket, fire. Very good. We've got Ben Duncan. Good to talk to you earlier this week. And, yeah, nice to see you on the live stream. We've got Odie Jr., one Johnson, who I just said hello to before. We've got Devoid, good morning to you. Black Tengu, Happy New Year indeed. Joe Smith, misses the 90s. Yeah, I don't know. I guess there's something about, being nostalgic about times when you grow up. Yeah, I try to stop myself getting nostalgic about stuff. There's stuff I'm always going to like about the 80s and the 90s just because of how old I was during those times. But at the same time, again, stuff is like everything that I enjoyed about those times is better now. So, even things like music, things like, which I think we're kind of hardwired to like music and get locked into what music we like from certain times. There's good stuff around, and so I don't know. I try to stop myself getting nostalgic, but I know what you mean. I do know where you're coming from on that one, and I do feel it. We've got Tokyo 503. Good to see you. Happy New Year indeed. DJ Sunny Side Up. Yo, kickflip. You got your kickflip just in time. Any goals for 2022? I'm really careful about setting goals. It's always been the case whenever I declare a goal, thinking that, I'm going to put social pressure. I think the problem with declaring goals is, at least in my case, I don't know if this is how it is for everyone, I find goals that I have that I don't tell anyone about, I'm much more likely to achieve than goals that I declare. I think people believe that if you declare a goal, if I were to say to you on the stream, I've done this. I joined a French rugby club and I declared I was going to learn French. And I learned how to say putain, and I picked up a few phrases from the lads, but I never really picked up the language. And I think in a way, declaring the intent in front of people to do the goal partly to put pressure on yourself to do it, but actually what happens is you feel like you've kind of done it a little bit just by declaring it, and you ease off. I feel like, I don't know, the pressure to do it is less if you don't say it. And to tell you the truth, I don't really have anything pronounced. I had some goals last year about getting healthier and losing some weight, and I did that. But I think part of the reason I did that was simply that it was something I plugged away at quietly. I didn't mind declaring, oh, I'm fat, and oh, here's a graph, and so on. I didn't mind doing that, but yeah, I don't have anything stand out like that at the moment. Of course, there's things I want to do. I've had some big ones that have come and gone, including I really needed to shut down, and the MyChan TV was a great experiment. It was a good project for me. It ended up costing quite a bit of money in the end of the day. But I learned a lot from it, and I would like to do something like that again, but I don't have a great idea right now, and I'm not rushing desperately to do that. I'm really busy with, obviously my regular job and so on, but yeah, if the right thing comes along, and certainly if I have the time to be able to commit to it, I'm looking forward to that. So we'll see what the year throws at us, but yeah, good question. Man, I do enjoy seeing your dance goals and your skateboarding goals and all that sort of stuff, as well as you getting really good with the music, man. So yeah, very, very much appreciate that, and Happy New Year to you and your family. DJ Sunnyside Up. Dan H, great to see you. Happy New Year, Dan H. Who else we got in here that I haven't said hello to yet? Eric Bailey. I'm sorry if I missed anyone. By the way, even if you don't normally comment, just say hello. I just love to see who's in here. It's nice to say hello to everybody. The interaction is part of the fun of the show, so please do that if you're around. Yeah, Jason's All Sumo channel. Ake Ome, indeed. Great to see you, Jason. And yes, our wonderful moderator, thank you for a wonderful 2021. Really, really appreciate all the great work you did last year, Aaron, as well as the wonderful moderation. So, yes, Happy New Year to you and to your family. Yeah, and I think we're caught up on people commenting. Do say hello if you haven't. Yeah, actually, one thing I did the other day, I did two things the other day, actually, which were kind of remarkable. One was I wrote a blog for the first time in like 5 years. I had too much to cram into a tweet. Everyone likes to be so negative about the present and the future, and I wanted to put in my ideas as to why I think right now is a remarkable time to be alive, and why I think that I am optimistic about the future. And rather than do it like 20 strung together awkwardly tweets, I wrote a blog, and I'll share that and talk about that in a moment. The other thing that I did was I did look back over 2021 and the stories that I thought were most interesting, or things that I discovered or did during the year that I most enjoyed. And I did that as like a tweet storm that I didn't have time to like add to this. So I think I'm actually going to go back into my tweets, which I can actually do through this Flipboard app, and just show those and talk about those. I'll try to cover those, but I've also got some stories that I want to talk about. So yeah, Eric Bailey. English is an awful language. I sympathize. You know what? I mean, French sounds good. And English does not. And on top of that, English is grammatically and linguistically. And don't forget, I mean, if you hate French, English is like 50% French from when we were colonized by, and the French took over our language, and most of the people who ruled, determined the English language and ruled over Britain for hundreds of years were French. So our language is a French colonial legacy, as well as the language that we're speaking, but of course half merged with awkward Danish and German and Latin and all sorts of other languages, and then frozen right when it was still in the middle of getting mixed up. I mean, I feel so bad for Japanese people that have to learn our messed up, makes no sense language. But in any case, I never did learn. I did pick up I could follow what was going on around me. But no, I never learned how to speak. And it's something, again, it's one of those things I felt like I almost jinxed it the moment I said it out loud. But anyway, got comments here just before we kick off then. Dan H, UK have ruled that Australia can use the term manuka for honey, despite it being a Maori word, because it is a common word. Also, 2425 of Leptospermum scoparium plants grow in Australia. Yeah, well, I mean, so the thing about manuka is, of course, it's not actually honey. It's a type of tree which grows. It's a Maori name for a tree that grows in New Zealand. I don't think it's necessarily. Maybe that manuka plants grow in Australia and they have a different name for it over there, or they're related plants. The honey comes from bees that feed off the flowers from manuka trees, hence manuka honey. So Murray didn't invent the honey. They didn't name that honey like his Manuka honey. It comes from that just they picked up the bees that make honey off that particular flower. It just has particularly good honey. And like with a lot of things, in New Zealand agricultural marketing is kind of next level. They figured out how to sell that. I mean, that stuff they sell it like it's hard drugs in Japan. You can sell Manuka honey in Japan for like $100 a jar. So it is valuable to New Zealand, and it kind of sucks that the Australians, I mean, it's like every good New Zealand actor and entertainer and musician that the Australians just claim it. Now they're claiming Manuka as well. Well, that's fine. It's a sign that Manuka's a success if Australia is trying to claim it. Australia can keep Russell Crowe, by the way. No problems with that one. While one is grown in New Zealand, what's next? Australia can claim the sheep came from New Zealand, as they both sheep. I got into fights. Not so much fights. I got into heated arguments with my Australian primary school teachers when my father was in the New Zealand Army, and I lived in Australia in a New Zealand Army family as a kid. And being in Australian school, and whenever the Australian school teachers said that Australia had the finest sheep in the world, and all I knew was I was from a nationalistic New Zealand Army family living in Australia, and I was not allowed to let that one go. It's probably like being a little Canadian kid in an American school, and the American teacher saying that America has the best ice hockey players in the world, and you can just imagine a little Canadian kid just feeling like he wouldn't be allowed to go home if he let the teacher get away with it. That's how I felt when my teacher talked about sheep in Australia. So yeah, good point. Eric Bailey, that's right, the French. DJ Sunnyside up. Totally feel on the goal thing. Peace from Kochi, indeed. Good to see you, man. Boom. And who gave Russell Crowe to us? As far as I'm concerned, Russell Crowe's always has been and always will be Australian. So anyway, let's get into the topics. So first of all, just going through the regular topics, and I'll go through more of the reflection stuff. We'll see how we get through. But the first one is, Australian, very Australian. Actually, apparently his dad is like a New Zealander, but definitely born in Australia, 100% Australian rugby league player. Blake Ferguson, who I didn't know anything about except I started watching Australian Rugby League highlights on YouTube. You can watch them for free on YouTube, not entire games. But I actually got into watching that this year, and so I watched highlights of every single Australian Rugby League game this year, and I picked up that Blake Ferguson's just had a great year in the Australian Rugby League for Parramatta. Had a great final. He was like a winger, scored a bunch of tries, top scorer, and so on. The game's a little bit high there. I'm just going to turn that down a little bit. Boom. And so this great Australian Rugby League star, they get paid a bunch of money, and sometimes what happens in Australia is when the team gets so terrible that they don't think anyone in Australia can actually play rugby anymore, is that they convince rugby league players to convert over and play rugby instead, and that's what they did with this Blake Ferguson guy. And look, Aboriginal, Tongan, Australian, and great player, young family, everything, and offered to leave rugby league for a huge contract with NEC to come to Japan and play under former Australian national coach Michael Shaker. Came over to Japan, and he's only been here like a couple of weeks, and he apparently, as you do when you get off the plane, is you go straight to Roppongi, as he did, and decided to somehow he got his hands on cocaine, which I'm almost impressed that he got his hands on cocaine in Japan in like a week or two. I've been here 23 years, and I wouldn't have a clue, seriously. But apparently he got his hands on cocaine, and he also decided to get into a fight in Roppongi, which is something. Roppongi is a really seedy international bar district. It's like, if you want to fight some Yakuza and some US Navy sailors drunk at the same time and buy some drugs, I mean, Roppongi is where you'd want to go. And this guy went straight to the culture district. So he got into a fight and was arrested for fighting and with cocaine on him. And he's in a lot of trouble now. He hasn't even played a game yet, but he's been arrested for fighting with cocaine in his pockets. I shouldn't be laughing. I mean, I don't wish anyone the misery of the Japanese immigration and justice systems, but he's about to experience both in a terrible way, and I feel really bad for his family. I mean, he's just given up his rugby career in Australia. He's applicated to Japan, had a huge contract set up for life, and what doofus? He's just gone. He's barely been here a couple of weeks, and he's buying cocaine and getting into fights in Roppongi, and now he's in jail, and he's going to be there for a long time, and then he's going to get kicked out of the country, and he's going to lose his job. So I gave the steps. I actually there's a few like joke themes that I love. I love Russian reversals, and I love the steps of things not to do. You know, like the many things that went wrong in the sequence of events for this Australian rugby league player. You know, if you come to Japan, don't go to Roppongi. If you go to Roppongi, don't get into a fight when you're in Roppongi. And if you do get into a fight when you're in Roppongi, do not get into a fight in Roppongi with cocaine in your pockets. You know, at any point along that chain, you know, ideally you don't get into any of them. But that thing just it comes from a flop, a Steven Spielberg flop, the movie 1941. I don't know if any of you know the movie 1941. It's actually the reason that Steven Spielberg never made comedies after that. The movie, and he went on to make all of his famous movies after this, but it's actually a great movie. I think it's an underrated movie. The sequence in that movie where the US military is putting a gun emplacement on the clifftop house of this family, and he's instructing the family in reverse in the 20 steps of how to activate the anti-submarine gun on this on the backyard of this property, and he's giving the 20 steps instructions on how to use it as all things not to do. So, you know, do not touch the gun, and if you do touch the gun, under no circumstances pull the lever, and if you do pull the lever, under no circumstances pick up this shell, and if you do pick up the shell, you must not under any circumstances load it into the breech. And later on in the movie, the father, when he has to use the gun, he's like trying to remember and reverse all the things that he was told not to say. This is the whole thing. You could do a 20-step Rube Goldberg machine of things not to do, and more than just the 3 steps that I gave that Blake Ferguson should not have done in Roppongi. But yeah, kids, you know, don't do any of the things that he did. And you know, again, I don't wish him or his family. I mean, his family are total victims in this. It's sad to hear, but God, what a doofus. So anyway, take it as a story of warning. So that's the first story. Into the comments, we got Kato Kra. Nice to see you. Cocaine and them fight as you do. Well, exactly. Some people pointed out on Twitter, by the way, that as an Australian rugby league player, they kind of have a reputation for doing this kind of thing in Australia. But yeah, Japanese culture is slightly different. You know, getting into cocaine-fueled fights in bars. Just not a thing, not cool in Japan. Maybe in the Gold Coast, I get it, but you know, not here. Don't do it, not cool. And yeah, they have shaker, which is punishment enough for NEC. But yeah, Blake Ferguson, good rugby. I mean, he's had a great year in rugby league, so there you go. No, I wouldn't know where to get drugs. I mean, I'm sure if you went looking really hard for it, you could probably find a nice police officer who will sell some to you. But seriously, kids, don't do it. Not cool. Just say no. Quentin Rankine, 1941 is a great movie. It's a great movie. I mean, there are some sequences in that movie which are highly underrated. The dishwashing scene in the beginning of the movie, the dance sequence, to me, the instructions on how not to use the anti-submarine gun, you know, are classic, like great comic scenes. But the whole movie, unfortunately, at the time, just because of the circumstances of how it was made and so on, it got trashed by critics. But it's an underrated movie. You should rewatch it. Odie Jr., yeah. Juan Johnson, how do I estimate his punishment will be? Good question. You know, you would think that being backed by a big company like NEC, he might get like some leniency, but you know, NEC is not going to want to be associated with this guy at all. They're going to cut his contract and cut him loose, and he's going to become a former employee very, very quickly before he hits trial. Probably what's going to happen. I mean, the celebrity thing, the best case for him is a quick deportation. But the standard situation, if this were like you or me or anyone else, you'd probably face 9 months or so, 6 to 9 months, up to 12 months in detention before trial, followed by trial, followed by multiple years. And I know people, I have met people. There was when I worked in New Zealand, I actually worked with a Japanese co-worker whose husband was deported from Japan for drugs. And actually, now that I think about it, he did a short jail sentence and was for weed, and then was deported. And she followed him. So, you know, credit to her for sticking with him, I suppose. But yeah, I would say for being caught with cocaine and getting into a fight and being a rugby player, which is considered an aggravating factor in Japan, you could be facing years. I would say 2 to 3 years prison, probably. Anything up to 10 is possible if you'd really done something to the other person, which it sounds like wasn't the case here. But I would say you're going to face probably up to nearly a year before your trial, and then probably an extra 2 or 3 years of jail time, followed by deportation. If he's lucky, he'll be in detention for 6 months and then get deported. That's his best case. His worst case is that he's going to be basically in jail for a good amount of time. It'll be interesting to see if the embassy steps in and tries to accelerate his deportation. That would in fact, that's highly likely that the Australian embassy might try to do something for him. But I mean, that's going to be embarrassing for the Australian government and the Australian embassy to do that. And are they going to go fight for this guy? He's just made some terrible decisions. So yeah, but for a regular person, you'd be looking at multiple years in jail. And Japanese jail, not fun. So seriously, you just don't want to go there. So yeah, it's not a good film. It's a mess. It has some great moments in that film. It is a mess, but to me it's a mess in a good way. I still think it's an underrated movie. I'm still looking for someone to sell me a driver's license, Eric Bailey. How much does it cost in Japan to incarcerate someone for a year? No one cares. That doesn't even get debated in Japan. So yeah, I mean, they don't incarcerate many people. The actual conviction rate is 99.9%, but that doesn't mean they're putting everyone in jail. It means that they don't actually convict very often. But this is the whole point. Once you are actually arrested and detained by the police, you are screwed. They don't do that very often. So yeah, did he go for the superfect and try to fight the cops too? No, it doesn't sound like it, but the facts are still a bit fuzzy at the moment. I hope not. He would be in a ton extra trouble for that as well. So yeah. Anyway, next story. I talked about the oversupply of milk and the different initiatives at the moment where because of COVID, there is less consumption of milk because of work cafeterias and so on, not using it so much. And so covering all the initiatives right now, convenience stores are selling milk for half price. There's trying to fix the oversupply. But again, this is the whole problem when you have state-run, and basically state-controlled production of, frankly, what's not an essential, product. Like milk, as you get these supply control problems, and that's what Japan is having right now. Interesting drama this week. I'll skip straight to the next one where we've got Okinawa at the moment. Not just Okinawa, actually. Kanagawa. So in Japan, Tokyo today, for example, had 84 cases, nearly double the number of cases that we had last week, and about 40% of those cases are Omicron. So it is now starting to spread in the community, doubling week over week. It's like nearly 2. So the numbers in Japan are still low. We're nationally 500 cases a day, so it's pretty good. But the curve is like this. So we are heading into the world that, unfortunately, it looks like Europe and America and everywhere else is going into of having out-of-control cases. America is very much already in that situation. And being in that situation, they are nonetheless still, as militaries do, flying people in and out of the military bases in Japan. And what it turns out is happening is first in Camp Hansen in Okinawa, as well as in Iwakuni in Hiroshima, and lately in Yokosuka base in Kanagawa, there are these massive Omicron clusters coming up. And these are being detected. Apparently what was happening was the approach that the US forces was taking was that if people have been fully vaccinated, they don't need to be tested. And so they apparently, although everyone in Japan, including Japanese people coming into Japan, have to go through isolation and quarantine for 2 weeks and so on whenever coming into the country, if you can travel at all. US troops who can still go and leave more or less freely are not even tested. The US military's approach was if they're vaccinated, they don't need to be tested. So they're discovering all of these cases, which are happening, of course, everywhere in people that are already vaccinated. All of this time, they apparently have been moving people without even checking if they had COVID. And apparently the Japanese government was livid when they found out about this. So the American military has now amended its position where they are now going to test all people coming into Japan after they arrive in Japan. They promise they will test everyone within 24 hours of them arriving in Japan. In the meantime, Camp Hansen, the cluster there is like hundreds of people. And it's infected base workers who are now infecting Okinawa. Okinawa has the same number of cases of COVID as Tokyo has, even though they've got like 1/10 the population. And that's been clearly caused by the military bases down there, as well as, of course, these other huge cases in Yokosuka. And the governor in Okinawa has been saying, please seal off the base and confine troops to quarters. And the U.S. military, again, is still thinking about what to do with that. So they've handled this incredibly badly. The only upside of it is that the camp that really started all of this is the Marine camp in Okinawa called Camp Hansen, which really, obviously, they need to switch that H to a K. I think they should call it Camp Kansen, which is the Japanese word for disease infection. I mean, that's just too good. How can they call it anything else after this? But and the fact that even when they sealed the base, that there was apparently a couple of cases where there was a drunken Marine who was arrested off base after a drunken hit and run case, and they caught him, and it turned out he also had COVID and he had been drinking off base. So, some discipline problems with the U.S. forces in Japan, nothing new. There have always been, there's a lot of people, tens of thousands of troops. So, of course, you are going to have idiots statistically within that. But when it's the leadership that are actually determining the policies for how people come into the country, that's not good. I do actually, just to be clear, I'm not anti-US military and I'm not anti-US base. Those troops are the reason that this whole region has not been up in flames for the last 75 years. And for the burden that they are and all the stupid things that they often do, they are still, the world is better off for them being here than not being here. But, that said, the US government, should try to just have a little bit of common sense, please. Or they will lose. I mean, they're there for America's benefit, and they don't want to. When America loses goodwill, you have what happened in the Philippines and other places. So they want to be careful of that. No comments. So I'm going to press on. Some cool, among the very cool stuff, which I'll probably come into in more detail soon. Japan has announced that it is going to be putting people on the moon. Japan is actually cooperating with Project Artemis, and they are providing some of the hardware that's going to be used for the moon base plan within the 2020s to go and set up in the moon, and they plan to be contributing JAXA astronauts to be people who will be based in the moon base that will hopefully be ready by around 2025 to 2027. It's getting pushed back at the moment, but it still is a wonderful, exciting thing and great for kids. I hope it's something that kids aspire to do. The Book of Boba Fett started. Temuera Morrison, please, Australia, you can have Manuka, but do not take Temuera Morrison. He's Boba Fett. He's he's every stormtrooper, clone trooper. He's Jango Fett. He's Jake the Muss. He is awesome. The thing is, of course, what I always had is among the Adult Swim. If I press this, it's going to play the video, so I don't want to play it. But Adult Swim has these these little animated figurine versions of many shows. But the Star Wars ones are just so good. And what's the most brilliant about the Adult Swim parodies of Star Wars is that they're designed that they fit with canon. They're designed that they never contradict canon. They are things that could have happened that do not contradict the plots, so they fill in the little gaps. They're like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. They're like the Rob Stoppard, filling in, and they fit. And so I was kind of curious, was Book of Boba Fett going to contradict this? And my favorite of all the Star Wars skits is the one where Boba Fett, drunkenly falls into the Sarlacc pit in Return of the Jedi, where he's supposed to be digested for 1,000 years. And it continues from that point, and it shows him stuck in the Sarlacc pit with another person with nothing to do, basically bragging that he meant to do it and telling sort of stories about, when he tells her how he heroically fell into the pit on purpose, and the other guy says, yeah, I'm so glad you didn't end up in here just like some sort of a punk. Yes, it was great, and in spite of that, it still could have happened. It still could have been true. It still fits, but you should check out the Adult Swim best clips of Boba Fett, and you should definitely go watch Book of Boba Fett if you're able to do it. Yes, it's on Disney Plus, but it's great. Also, another reason I'm super optimistic about 2022. That stuff, Mandalorian, Boba Fett, all these new Disney series and so on, are all being made like. Those are not like they're not locations. That entire thing is being filmed inside just a big green room, and all of those sets and locations, which feel great and gritty and real and awesome, that is all Unreal Engine. That's Epic. That's Fortnite. They are literally like they're making everything for those. Of course, there's a lot of great, actors and makeup and props and everything, but that's all being generated with Fortnite. And Unreal Engine 5 coming out this year, and what it's already shown it can do with the demos of it, and the fact that that's going to be available for free within Fortnite, within like the creative mode, that kids are going to be able to like create films and games out of that stuff within the games for free. But what it's going to enable for movie making and so on, what it's already showing with these series, with what you can do, it's just crazy. So that's just another cool thing. It's just going to make the ability to make like what would have been $100 million special effects movie 10 years ago. YouTubers, people like YouTubers, with basically like high school students are going to be able to make movies like that in the next year. It's nuts what Unreal Engine does, and that's setting aside the fact that Book of Boba Fett is some great storytelling. I loved the first episode. I can't wait for more of it. You can tell that the people who are doing it are not just good actors, but the story writers and so on. They really care about it. So yeah, I'm really stoked about that. Back into the comments, Quint Ranked. Wait, did I suggest the US should have common sense? Okay, maybe I was asking too much. Thank you. I take it back, Quint Ranked. One Johnson, do I game? Any favorites? Well, again, I've got a job and a kid, and I don't have a lot of time. But what I am doing a lot at the moment with this going on is this whole break, locked up at home with I'm playing Fortnite basically all the time with my son. I don't build, so I've gotten pretty good at, as good as you can probably get in Fortnite without building, which my son just does not accept at all. He's like, whenever we play, and I say, let's just play duo. And basically, it used to be, like, especially when it was on mobile, and I was pretty handy with it at mobile, and I could actually do pretty well. But on PC, I kind of suck. I'm basically like the comedy sidekick to my son. So we played duo, and today he actually got me a special like crown victory. I don't know if you know what that means, but it's like when you win twice in a row, or when you win where you're not dead at the end of the game and you're holding a crown, which I did for the first time today. But basically, my son's been trying to get me this crown. He's been trying to win with me in tow twice in a row, and all I have to do is not be dead and just let him go kill everybody. And today, he finally did that. But when we got it, he was like, okay, Dad, get back as far as possible. Do not move. Do not even try engaging with anybody. I will take care of it, okay? Just hold on to the crown and hide. And don't come out. I basically carry around all his health potions and all his building stuff for him, and I hide in bushes. So that's about as far as I go in gaming at the moment. I'm the comedy sidekick to my son, who is awesome at it, and it's fun. I mean, it's fun to watch. So I do a bit of that, and that is fun. That's as much as I have time for, really. So yeah, but it's a great game. What can I say? Eric Bailey, I love Fortnite. I have a strong dislike for 99% of the people that play Fortnite. Of course, they're killing you. What are you supposed to do? I mean, I understand it. If you've been run over by someone driving a truck, it was probably me. What can you do? Eric Bailey, no problem. Again, it's kind of funny how I don't miss traveling a lot. I mean, I miss it, I suppose, but I'm not like I'm not necessarily going to be jumping straight onto a plane when I don't see how that's going to happen, frankly. But I must admit, I've gotten more into watching this series. And if I do travel, I never travel business class or first class, but I do love watching this Trek Trendy channel with this guy who just flies. He just seems to do nothing but fly non-stop. And he makes a living, it seems, off getting cheap airfares in first class and business class tickets, and making reviews of the flights. And he did a flight basically on ANA first class from London to Narita or Haneda, I think it was, and then getting on another plane at Haneda Airport, coming through customs and flying back to Germany. Apparently it took a while for him to be able to explain what was happening in a way that ANA could understand, because he wasn't allowed into Japan, so they weren't going to let him on the flight. And he explained, no, I'm going to fly back again and I'm going to do a review. And they eventually let him do it. But yeah, it's just kind of fun. To me, it's so weird and exotic to see like traveling and to see what these sort of, these planes look like. So I've been enjoying that. Alrak 299, great to see you. Happy New Year. 今年もよろしくお願いいたします. Indeed. Very nicely said there. One John-san, I'm glad that you liked my Fortnite story. The Master, hey, good to see you, The Master. Happy New Year indeed. What else we got in here? Yeah, I'll come back into actually showing my tweets soon. So Yeah, we've got police lose 2 floppy disks containing personal info on 38 people. This is Mega Award, and it wasn't just for the police. That the Mega Award does this with the bank as well, that they still use floppy disks. And from the pictures that I've seen, these aren't even the 3-inch floppy disks. These are the old school 128 kilobyte 5 1/4 inch floppy disks that they still use in Mega Award. A long way to go with digitization. Although Mega pointed out that in 30-40 years of using this technology for transferring banking information and for doing background checks on housing, public housing applicants in this case, they've never lost data. Like, it's a pretty reliable data source. And I suppose, let's face it, given how much data gets stolen through hacking or whatever, keeping it stored on physical floppy disks that no one has drives for anymore probably is in a perverse way a kind of a secure way of keeping data. But again, it just shows Japan continues to be a paradox of the sort of high tech and crazy low tech at the same time. Some interesting things that happened in 2021 in government in Japan, some of which I can't talk about, but the push from the Japanese government with the digital agency to force local governments to basically modernize technology, and I think the benefits of that, both for the economy and for government as well, are going to be huge, and it's going to be very transformative. But yes, the fact that they misplaced 2 floppy disks, and they have to report that as a personal data breach, is just awkward on so many levels by the police and Mega Award and all that sort of thing. So hey, DJ Sunnyside Up, did I tell you that I got a Akai MPK mini play? Oh, cool. The pads are nice. It's a bit hard to push down though. You mean like my MPK mini that I've got behind me over there? Hang on a sec. You got one of those? That's what you've got, right? In fact, you've got the mini play is the updated version of that. You've got the newer version of that, right? Nice. Let me grab it. I must admit, I have not been using mine at all. Cool. So I definitely have one of these, and I got into playing it for a while. But DJ Sunnyside Up, so this is a good piece of kit. This is pretty much the standard for USB interfaces, actually. So awesome. Wow, can't wait to see what you do with that. I saw that you had the Casio for a long time, and you're actually capturing the sound, and that was cool. But yeah, using this with a proper USB MIDI interface with a computer, you're going to power up with that, so that's pretty cool. Awesome. Anyway, what else have we got here? Oh yeah, from this week, the Tokyo Metropolitan Government for the next month is going to finally allow free PCR testing for anyone who wants it. A lot of people have been talking about for a long time that's Japanese dirty. It is a little bit dusty. It's not too bad, is it? Oh, that's pretty good. Oh, the side speaker's got the built-in speaker. That's what plays. That's right. That's the difference. My one only works with USB. You actually got to plug it into the iPad to be able to hear anything, whereas the Play actually has a speaker built in, so it will actually make sound on its own. I remember now. Cool. Nice piece of kit. So anyway, but coming back, so yes, if you're actually, for the first time ever, if you did want to get a PCR test, you could pay for one. If you needed one, a doctor would refer you one, but they were deliberately not over-testing because they wanted to maintain some PCR sort of testing capacity. And this led to a lot of people saying, well, because the government's using criteria to determine who's eligible for these, even when people think they should get the test. There's a way that there's a lot of conspiracy theorists on Twitter were saying that this is how the Japanese government is suppressing the number of COVID cases in Japan to save the Olympics. Now, if you want to actually know if they really are suppressing the numbers, you can determine that by looking at the positivity rate. You can determine is Japan over-testing or under-testing, and generally 5% or less is considered sufficient testing. And look, in the peaks that we had last year, we had 20%, 25% positivity rate on PCR tests, which showed that there was way more cases out there than were being caught by testing. But for the last few months, the testing rate has been, the positivity rate's been like 0.3%. So there's been perfectly adequate testing, at least statistically, in terms of the positivity rates. But that said, with the anticipation of the sixth wave, which is definitely now starting in Japan, and with people traveling for the end of year and whatnot, the government, the Tokyo government anyway, has made available free testing. And it will be interesting to see if it does contribute to the increase in cases that we're seeing. and a drop in positivity rates further. We'll see. But yeah, it's good news if you're in Tokyo and you want access to more free testing. Frankly, you can get tests easily from any pharmacy anyway. And by the way, the free testing is mostly available from Welcia, WELCIA pharmacies all over Tokyo, 180 locations. So it's pretty accessible and it is free. And besides that, you could go and buy a kit like from any of those locations anyway. The point is that they will administer the test and they'll do it for free, at least until the end of January. So that is a good thing anyway. That is the floppy disk thing. Thing down the bottom where RChip kicked off this this week, actually, from January. And this is, again, disappointing that this is the China-centric free trade agreement for East Asia. Disappointing that America isn't involved and India pulled out. Also disappointing. Also disappointing that it's another free trade agreement where Japan has excluded meat, dairy, and rice. Rice, I understand. Meat, not really. I would love to get cheap meat, frankly, which there is plenty of elsewhere in Asia Pacific. And dairy, my strong opinions on that subject. So those things are excluded. But more than anything is the fact that China is involved in it. This is the TPP with China. And here's the thing, this means that China is now at the center of the biggest free trade agreement in the world. And America could have been in the biggest one, and it decided at the last minute to pull out, which was a huge misjudgment. But at the same time, both the Democrats and the Republicans and the American people are all aligned at the moment that they don't believe that free trade is politically defensible. It looks like you're selling American jobs overseas, and I get that rhetoric, but it's bad for America and it's bad for the world, and it's unfortunately going to make America poorer and China richer, and that's what our CE episode is. So that's why that is disappointing. I am not going to go to Roppongi with that or with butter or dairy products because I might get regulated. I spoke about how awesome Unreal Engine 5 is. There's actually this 5-minute awesome sort of Star Wars fan film called First Day. It actually doesn't show off Unreal Engine very well, although it does look awesome, and you should go watch it. But it's a 5-minute Star Wars fan film, and it's great. You should look it up and watch it. It is awesome. But yeah, and final thing is, over New Year's there's just nothing to do. Everything is closed, so a lot of people do watch shows, and I hate Tarento-based variety shows, but I do enjoy watching shows which involve sort of non-Tarento, at least as the main people in it. And one series which comes out every sort of few months, they'll do a special called in fact, I've just dropped it. It's like Just Pour or something like that. But it's a series where they'll have all of these sort of top restaurant chefs and pâtissiers and so on from different fields. They'll have these 7 judges, and they will evaluate the best offerings of every convenience store chain. Or this week they had the 3 biggest convenience store chains in Japan: 7-Eleven, Family Mart, and Lawson. And they actually have the creators of the offerings of these, and remember, Japanese convenience stores are famous for how good their offerings are. And they actually have the industrial cooks that actually come up with these offerings. And they try to see if they get a pass or fail score from each one of these 7 judges for their offerings. And the judges, classical Japanese sort of artisan style, they're tough. So on the one hand, it's clearly marketing and advertising for the convenience store chains. I mean, it does promote the products, especially if they get an endorsement out of this. But at the same time, there's a risk, because about nearly half of the products that are held up as being the best offerings of 7-Eleven and Family Mart, and this is big money. These are everywhere, on every corner in Japan. If these get a fail rating, those things are not going to sell. So it's taking a big risk for the convenience stores as well. But it is quite compelling to watch, and I must admit, I saw the ratings and I went out today and I bought some of the things that that looked particularly good. And the 3 that I got were actually, there was a Family Mart. There was actually there was a pork bun, which looked pretty good. There was also crispy chicken, which didn't look very good, but they got a good rating, so I tried it out. Also got it's basically there's a omelette cream is what they call it, which doesn't sound very appealing, but it's actually more or less like a Twinkie cake with cream cheese and thick cream and lemon on top, and that was awesome. So hey, Tom Ruita Ichi just subscribed. Nice to see. That was awesome. So basically, I got 3 of these things myself. But one thing that was interesting was a 7-Eleven frozen pizza got like a good rating, and I'm enjoying watching Barstool and the pizza ratings on that. So I was kind of like how, you know, so now I'm used to almost every day I watch these pizza ratings. I'm thinking, how could 7-Eleven possibly do a decent pizza? Like, that doesn't make sense. Just a microwave pizza, it's just going to be floppy and horrible. And I sort of looked at it and I thought, that's just going to be sort of like chewy and floppy and oily and not good. But it got a good rating. So I went and bought one, and it was frozen. Interesting, it was frozen, and it comes with instructions. At first you defrost it for 90 seconds, and then you put it into a toaster oven at 250 degrees for 5 minutes. And so I followed the instructions, and it's quite expensive actually, and it comes out with quite good product, you know. It's got good cheese and tomato and basil leaves and stuff on it. I followed the instructions, and it came out like crispy, and it was like shockingly good. Like, unbelievable that you could get this frozen. Like, I've never had frozen pizza like that before. Now, not as good as a real pizza from a pizza restaurant, you know, from a real oven, but pretty shockingly close. In fact, better than a lot of pizza than you get in a lot of restaurants that are not proper pizza restaurants, right? You know how you get to a lot of restaurants, like Italian restaurants, that have a pizza option, and it's okay, but it's just, you know, basically pita bread and tomato and cheese in an oven. This is better than that. They actually make it by hand. They make each one of these by hand, and they pre-cook it in an actual brick wood-fired oven before they freeze it. So that was surprisingly good. And yeah, the other ones as well. The crispy chicken wasn't very good, but the dessert thing, the omelette thing, the Twinkie, basically, I mean, showing my age, 1980s, they had Twinkies in New Zealand. I mean, those things you could export probably to the moon and they'd never go off. This is basically like a Twinkie with like cream cheese and then cream on top. That was great. That was actually like, that was a 5 stars for me. But yeah, so I totally got sucked into buying the things that I saw on the TV special and not buying the things, obviously, that failed. So yeah, I guess it worked. Yeah, Mr. Cordy Chip, they showed the factory where they make them. They stretched the dough by hand for every single one that they manufacture. So yeah, that's what you get with that. Hey, bye, Happy New Year, good to see you, sir. And everybody else in the comments got Regi, good to see you, and Happy New Year indeed. I'm glad that you enjoyed the comment. And Linksy Project, excellent to see indeed in your Family Mart. You just want the Family Mart curry pan. Well, that's perfectly good. AV84K, excellent to see you. BTC Chiba, excellent to see you. Wow, and DJ Sunny Sada, Dora and I just got invited to a random neighbor's house after we visited a nearby temple, had a glass of wine, and kazunoko, I don't know what that is, but very nice. Dora had an ice cream. 2022 is already good. Yeah. Did you know pizzas are good? Okay, that's good. That's all. Did you know pizzas are good? Okay, well, that's also good to know. What I'm going to do next is something, I'm going to go actually directly into my tweets. For 2 reasons. One, I'm going to go and show, I actually went to the trouble to write a blog, and I haven't done that for a while. I'll reshare the link for this later on, but I'll show it with you and just show you what it's actually the first time I've actually written down a blog in a while, and it's something I really do like doing, and I should do more. I appreciate the efficiency of Twitter, but at the same time, I did think it was nice to actually have unlimited space to share a train of thought, which I did. So let me see if I can find it. Give me a second here. Boom, 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 boom. It was around here somewhere. James Webb Telescope, that was awesome. Here! Oh, crap, no, stop. What a time to be alive. Welcoming 2022. So, again, I fired up the old blog. I was surprised it still works. It's a wonder this feels like almost like MySpace or something. But anyway, I think the biggest trends and things that make it an interesting time to be alive basically come down to the 4th Industrial Revolution, automation, which is happening right now. I see we've got 10 minutes left, so I'm not going to read this whole thing out loud. But I would love if people would, I'll reshare the link for this on my Twitter after the show, maybe even in the description if I remember to. But Yeah, it's actually, I work in tech, and the reason right now it's super interesting just seeing what's going on in the world is this combination. What's changed is in the last 10 years, and what's really changed, particularly in the last couple of years, is fundamentally the all the things that we wanted to do that seemed like beyond reach, like sending all of these private space companies and everyone having rockets now, and all these self-driving cars and EVs and all of these new options for renewable energy, and all of these new sort of medicines where we invented our mRNA vaccines, and how those are already showing promising results on both trials as vaccines against HIV and for cancer and other diseases that were thought are incurable. And all of this is happening all of a sudden. And the reason that it's happening all of a sudden is basically, one, most of these things, access to computing power is basically no longer walled by a need to huge amounts of capital. It used to be that, you basically needed to be a government to have enough money to be able to build a computer, to be able to start to even do the computation needed to do the computation that's being used to design these rockets cheap, to design these medicines, to reduce these medicine development cycles from 5 years to 6 months and so on. Because basically through cloud and through other sort of distributed technologies and whatever, you don't have to build data centers, you don't have to build a mainframe to do that anymore, and you don't have to take the risk of losing the money. You just rent the time on the server that you need, and then you stop using it when you're done. And this means that there are university students. I mean, apps like Netflix and Spotify can be built by students, and you don't need a ton of VC money to set them up. If you just need to put in the hours to do it and the idea. And with increasing affordable access to internet connectivity, it basically means that what's being more critical for success in the economy now more than even 10 years ago, it always used to be, it wasn't having a good idea. I mean, having a good idea, of course, was always a big part of it, but you had to have the combination of having a good idea and having the motivation and connections to be able to get the investors, the VC investors, the capital, the venture capitalists who would come and invest and take a risk on your idea and giving you a ton of money as a risk to be able to do that. And that's why all of those ideas that came out like 10 years ago, the YouTubes and so on, the Facebooks and whatever, they were all backed by people with a lot of money that helped them set up and to go and set up the physical infrastructure to set up their businesses. Nowadays, you don't need that. You can actually make successful apps that can grow into, software, hardware, all these sorts of things based on basically the fact that you have university students can basically get together with credit cards that students can get and can set up and run supercomputers. And this is happening for things like movie development, game development. People, shogi players are using this. And what that sort of means is this technology is also behind the sudden acceleration in using automated machine learning, AI by another term, but more commonly machine learning, to be able to basically take over a lot of testing and a lot of repetitive sort of tasks and thinking to reduce development times and cycles and costs. And that means that right now we're just seeing these jumps in medicine, energy, science, and all the sort of crazy stuff. Of course, the other thing is that it means that automation is happening now much more rapidly, and automation of the automation is now happening. So we're getting into these crazy cycles at the moment where, it used to be software would sort of rapidly, simplify and remove, mundane, repetitive work, and that is happening at a faster and faster pace in the information space. But now that's even getting into spaces like agriculture, driving, tasks that were considered purely mechanical or labor are now being taken over by this as well. And it's going to be a huge challenge for society to figure out when all of these jobs are in the midst of being automated, like within the next few years. It's going to happen faster than I think people realize. On the upside is it's going to be people are going to have more time to focus on higher end work and higher end things, and it's going to accelerate the speed at which we improve things. But on the other hand, of course, there's going to be a lot of people that won't be able to keep up with that change, and you're going to have a lot of people who are going to be like horseshoe cobblers, and it's going to be a huge challenge for the economy what to do with those people. And are we going to move to 4-day working weeks? Are we going to move to universal basic incomes or whatever? Who knows? But in the meantime, I think the challenges, like, in spite of being in the middle of a pandemic, in a way, we're also in a time where we could actually be in the midst, on the threshold of being able to cure most diseases. We could have easy reach the ability to actually have carbon-free, when you talk about unlimited free energy generation, things like fusion technology have suddenly made huge leaps. Different types of renewable energy have made huge leaps. And all of this stuff, and the way that this is actually translated into, so what is there left for people to do? Well, when you think about the amount of power now that just creators have, that people have to be creative, and the way that the sophistication of formats like YouTube, for example, where it used to be a whole bunch of people like me just talking into blurry webcams, which I still am doing, and how that's turned into now, where so much of the content on YouTube is basically indistinguishable from professionally made content. In fact, the line between those is now extremely blurred, and the fact is that, where it used to be that everyone in the world, everyone in the country would watch the same TV shows, listen to the same music and the same TV shows. Now more and more people are watching really good TV shows and documentaries and shows and movies and music, and it's all really good and it's all really accessible, but it's all really tailored to that person, because there's so much choice. We're really moving into the real long tail age. That's definitely what I've felt in the last year, that I watch a bunch of YouTube channels that I'm guessing most people don't. I couldn't meet many other people that watch the same channels that I watch, that I can have conversations about those channels with, but they're awesome. So I think for that as well, it's just an amazingly innovative and rapidly acceleratingly interesting time that we're living in, and for that I am really, really excited to see what comes in the next year. And I'm sure for all the bad, there is going to just be a ton of exciting good stuff as well. And in terms of stuff that makes me looking back in 2021, this rapid speed. First of all, I got my new keyboard, boom, custom made. I did realize at the end of the year that everything I was doing in the last year was coming out like cyan color. The My Chan TV logo, my new shoes, my keyboard, my chair. Check this out. It was not intentional. I just kept picking the same color. There's some, I guess I like that color. I like that sort of aqua green kind of color, but that's just me. But anyway, this keyboard is like one of the best things I've ever gotten. I love it, and it's completely custom. The fact that I designed it all, and had this awesome person in China who I want to go give a hug when we can hug people again, which was probably about 10 years from now. I want to do that to that person. That was great. There is the chair. That was awesome. I customized my headphones. These are Sony MDR 7506s. These are like the industry standard. These are like the Technics SL1200 are to turntables as these are to headphones. These are like industry sort of standard things, and I love those. The best spelling miss of the year, the fact that in fact it was Sapporo Breweries, was it? They misspelled lager on their beer cans and had to sell all the beer cheaper because they misspelled lager, which everybody appreciated and nobody cared about. Other stuff that was awesome, nobody actually noticed because everyone was so focused on EVs, but actually Mercedes-Benz and Honda both launched the world's first level 3 self-driving cars this year. These are cars that can drive themselves completely safely on their own on the highways. I know everyone thinks that Tesla having those accidents were level 3 cars, and they were not. Tesla actually has announced that they'll launch a level 3 car this year. But they were level 2 cars that people are treating like level 3 cars, and that's why they were unfortunately getting decapitated at times. Check the label if it says level 3 or not. But Honda Legend and Mercedes-Benz have launched this, and level 5 is where you don't even need to have a steering wheel on the car, and that's what the race is to at the moment. But these are cars now that you can actually reliably drive on highway conditions without actually, where you can fully like hands off the steering wheel. And yeah, the world is rapid. To me, that is just cool that's happened very quickly. Part of the reason that didn't get attention was that those were not electric cars; those were regular cars with these self-driving systems. But that's getting better. Unseen Japan has had awesome content on their YouTube channel. Highly recommended. Some great documentaries. The one on the colonization of Hokkaido, as well as the one on the history of the Red Army, are just great content that everyone should watch. I love the fact that everyone in Japan bought pineapples from Taiwan when China tried bullying Taiwan by blocking pineapple imports, leaving them with too many pineapples, and so Japan just started like a national thing. Let's help Taiwan, and everyone started buying pineapples, and they were good pineapples, and I bought a few. David Yuri, famous Hollywood actor, brother of Kent Tanaka, of course, he started doing dramatic monologues of 1980s TV theme shows. And they are brilliant. And he actually, one was a request from me. I think, which one did I request? Oh, I think I requested Different Strokes. The Greatest American Hero. I requested The Greatest American Hero, and which I thought was awesome for a dramatic monologue, and he did that. That's what that link is for. But the whole thing was awesome. Rochelle Kopp continues to be awesome. She is doing companies for her own company, and they're actually great little videos. What is Hanse, for example, there. The best conversation I had on all of last year was with the furniture salesman when I was buying a desk for my son, and he excitedly told me that his daughter had married an American and that they'd had 3 kids, and all of the kids were half. That was just a great moment. I didn't quite know how to follow that. You know, there's the situation where if I'd made a joke, I would have hurt his feelings. So I congratulated him. Japan's installing more renewable energy, and that is a great thing. This series of Voices of the Past, another awesome YouTube channel where they talk about accounts, often by non-English speakers, translated accounts, first-person accounts of historical events. But actually the series that they did on the history of Japan in the West, like 2 episodes, mind-blowing, fantastic channel. I mean, you just have to, everyone has to listen to this. Also another great history content, purely Japanese history content, and I've never been that into, honestly, the Sengoku Jidai and the ancient Japanese sort of history. This guy Lin, for me, I don't know who this person is or where they came from, but they tell middle-aged Japanese history and and culture in such a funny, compelling, entertaining way. The whole series on the Mongols like trying to invade Japan, and it wasn't just the kamikaze, it just wasn't just the divine wind, it was Kublai Khan sending letters like begging Japan to just give up and surrender, and he characterized it as like a sort of a jilted girlfriend, you know, asking for another chance, and in Japan just sort of ghosting them the whole time. Because they didn't want to, the cost of preparing an invasion of Japan was so high for the Mongols, but they really wanted to do it, so they basically tried to convince them that you'll have a great, we can be great together. And I didn't know this history, but it's like, it makes it super memorable and entertaining. And yes, the Japanese adult stars of the Middle Ages, that was one of them. He does a lot of sexy time-oriented culture from Japanese Middle Ages, which is fantastic. The history of Japanese Buddhism, I never thought I could find that interesting. And he found a way to make it interesting. He showed what absolute antisocial freaks the founders of Japan's main different sects were, and sort of, and how they Nichiren alone, I had no idea about the history of Nichiren. How Nichiren went around basically, trying. He was like Larry David. His whole goal in life was to go and be alienated so that he could like be persecuted. That was like his goal. So he just tried to alienate everyone around him. He was just awkward and horrible to everyone, and then considered that was like his success. Anyway, Lin for me, awesome. Go watch that. We did make a 2.5 Voyages. Everyone is asking for another 2.5 Voyages. Victor and I both want to do another 2.5 Voyages. We get wrapped up in life, but I'll tell you, if we have a goal for 2022, I will declare it now that we will do. We're not going to reboot the whole series, because it does. If I do that, this and that, it means I don't have any night off on the weekend, and I need one night. I need to watch movies one night. But we are definitely going to do some 2.5 Voyages shows, more than one. That's the goal for 2022. I will say that. Although now that I've said it, maybe I've jinxed it, but we both want to do that, so that's a good thing. If you watch this, you should check out Tokyo Wave. They actually do Japanese news every week. Good. Better than me. They actually prepare, they script. It's actually insightful. It's quite funny. And they get very few listeners. They get like 50 views on every video, and they're all good, So and they do a podcast version of it as well. Tokyo Wave, you should check that out. mRNA, just awesome this year. We're sending rockets to the moon. That rocket is going to the moon. That is awesome. The James Webb Telescope is awesome. Elements of Japan, the series by Arisha in Tokyo. One of the best production values travel shows I've ever seen done on Japan. There's 2 or 3 episodes out at the moment. There's more to come, but awesome. You should go check that out. One of the best series ever made. What is that guy? Oh, that is the Justice Minister going undercover. I think now that was that Turner and Hooch. There was no, it wasn't. There was a Kurt Russell movie where he's like a cop going undercover as a convict. I get the feeling that could be what this is. The Justice Minister, I don't think it could have been election bribery. I think it's that the Justice Minister actually is investigating himself corruption in the justice system, and as such has faked a conviction so that he can go undercover in the prison system for 4 years to try to find Mr. Big. I'm pretty sure that's what the story is really about. This is actually him serving justice more than any justice minister in history by going undercover in the justice system by being convicted of election bribery. Yeah, Dogen just continued to be awesome at everything. Damn you. It's just like everything he does is just like hilariously great and clever and funny. And it's like I throw like 100 pitches, and I graze like with one of them. I barely hit anything. I like swing, I swing and swing and swing. I never hit, and he just like hits every single time. It's not fair. He is awesome. He is awesome. Just everything he does is good. Stories about Japan from Giro Reddy, that was pretty good. The fact that Noto, I mean, for all of the COVID relief funds spending, the fact that Noto spent it on a $230,000 squid statue. I thought this was great. I thought this was, I mean, for all the COVID Olympic, corruption stories of the year. Oh, come on, paywall, go away. Trust me, there's an enormous Cthulhu like statue of a squid there, and hey, Cthulhu, take us all. I mean, I get it. They have a lot of squid in the town, and they wanted to promote tourism for after the pandemic, and good on them for investing in that. A $230,000 squid statue, though, probably not exactly what the government was thinking when they were giving them COVID relief money, but I respect that. I do. The Kento Bento, a couple of series again. Unseen Japan also did a great series on the Red Army. This was another, the Kento Bento video on the Red Army hijacking of the Yoro flight to Fukuoka, domestic flight where they hijacked and they flew it to North Korea, was awesome. The Olympics, when they asked everybody to leave enough room for the baby Jesus, to take the condoms and just please, whatever you do, don't use them. Yeah, that was just that was really the only thing about the Olympics I remember. I don't know about everyone else, but yeah, Taro Kono bragging on Twitter about how Japan was doing great at vaccinations, which in the end it did actually. I think he did deserve credit for it in the end, although it took a long time getting there. We did do okay with vaccinations in the end. We're like 80% double vax now across the whole population. So yeah, but the fact that you'd go on Twitter and say, "Hey, look at us now, doing pretty good, eh?" I literally that is Taro Kono, who I do kind of, I must admit, there's almost no one from the LDP I think is a good person or would be a good prime minister, but I would have liked to have seen him be prime minister. But yeah, he wasn't popular enough within the party. But I did enjoy the as well as watching the internet, the foreign internet in Japan lose its mind whenever the vaccine minister said we're doing a good job. Just like the ending of the movie AI. Was it AI? No, iRobot. That's right. All the peppers have been shut down and recalled to the factory. I'm suspecting that Will Smith was involved. Possibly they were trying to take over the country. Not quite sure. But no one really liked them. They always seemed a little bit suspicious. It was a good idea. A bit ahead of its time. This is Masayoshi Son. Stuck these things, and they're basically an iPad and an Alexa glued together and given arms. That's pretty much all it was. But I'm sure we'll get better versions of that. The best movie of 2021 was that guy talking about the fork hands, how vaccines work in 60 seconds, in the 60-second movie category. How mRNA vaccines work, that to me, that was just like the best movie I've seen all year. It's entertaining, educational, brilliant. Seriously, best movie I've seen all year. I think we all know about that by now. We had space tourism. I know that there have been tourists who have been actually on the Russian space station and so on before, but in terms of actually having a fully private space tourism thing where they actually launch people into space, Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin of course did that, and SpaceX did that with the Inspire mission as well. So we had 3 private companies to fully private trips into space. And yes, sure, it looks like a sort of a party cruise liner for billionaires at the moment, but this is the start. They start mass producing this stuff, and they start putting space stations up there and everything, and this becomes something that starts to equate to an expensive cruise liner trip for a retiree, which is what I want to do. Not the cruise liner. I want to get in a rocket and not explode, fly upwards, hopefully within 20 years. And this is the start of that. So that was super exciting. Unseen Japan was awesome. The Japanese women's basketball coach, who was actually on TV this evening, and whenever he's on TV, even my son comes up to me and says, "Dad, were you on TV?" And he's a very, very good-looking man. What can I say? It's an innocent and understandable mistake. This video was actually just great. It's a documentary on the origins of the Ainu. The Ainu, of course, the indigenous people of Japan in Hokkaido, the culture has a lot of parallels I see with New Zealand indigenous Maori culture, which is partly why I find it fascinating. But apparently when they started doing like genetic testing of Ainu and so on, they actually found that they share genetics in common with basically two groups. Some people who live in the mountains in the north of Myanmar, like in the middle of the Golden Triangle, and the Andaman Islanders. And basically the theory is that these are the first people that left Africa and became the Aboriginals in Australia, and that came out like 500,000 years ago from Africa and settled in Asia, and then no one else did. And then 100,000 years ago, everyone else came out of Asia and basically left these populations with these genetics in little isolated areas in totally different parts of Asia, but they're the only people that have this DNA in common, and they include the Ainu, and it's just kind of nuts and fascinating and wonderful. And I love the way it puts together the story of how just humans like spread over the whole world. And it's real Japanese culture. It's amazing. So that was a great video. The shoes were awesome, and they did make me go faster. Although yes, not by making you spring or by making running easier, by literally forcing you to run faster on your toes. But it works, so that was cool. The socks were awesome, especially this time of year when it's cold. I'm really appreciating my Lion socks. I actually bought a couple more pairs the other day. Japan is finally appreciating artificial tech engineers. They're actually paying six-figure incomes for the first time ever to new university grads, which is painful because that's what Japanese execs get paid. The series, the YouTube channel Toy Galaxy, a wonderful channel that actually, you talk about nostalgia, it talks about 80s and 90s TV shows and toys associated with them, but it goes into the history of those sort of franchises, including things like Transformers and, My Little Pony and Sailor Moon and so on. But what they show with things like Voltron and Transformers, for example, is they go deep into the origins of it as a Japanese thing, and how the whole business was about these toy, company execs who flew over to Japan, filled their arms up with all of these transforming toys in Japan, and tried to figure out how to rename and relabel everything and sell them as products to kids in America and New Zealand and whatnot. And to me, it's not just like cool learning how these like things started in each case, but it's a wonderful case of how Japanese culture was just recognized as being so awesome, and how all these people tried to capitalize on it, and it became part of our culture, Western culture anyway, I say as an English speaker, without even realizing it was Japanese. But and the fact that when they stopped buying the toys from Japan, they found that the American toy makers couldn't make transforming toys. They couldn't reproduce it. The Japanese were just ahead of the curve and better at this stuff. And they invented all of this cool stuff. That one on Voltron is a great example of, exactly the crazy way that they imported this stuff, and what a mess it was that they actually imported 3 completely different series, including they got the wrong series about the robot fighting cats. They got a different one to the one that they ordered, but they just did voiceovers and stuff on it anyway and threw it out, and it became this huge hit. That was wonderful. Another series that actually new episode came out today that I've been watching is the history of Japanese militarism by Extra Credits, another wonderful history channel that you should watch. Again, the series explaining how Japan ended up in World War II and how it ended up with the military taking over and running the country. And what a complete mess Japan was in the 1930s, and the complexity of it. It explains it so well and so entertainingly, and it's so great, and everyone should watch it. Highly recommend Extra Credits. James Webb launched, and it still is going out to Lagrange Point 2 at the moment. It's a 6-meter telescope that's going to show the first stars in the universe. I can't wait. It's going to start getting images hopefully around the end of January. And this is going to be bigger than Hubble, and we're going to be seeing tons of mind-blowing science and photos in the next year, and that's going to be awesome. The Expanse is awesome. I've been loving that, and now they're doing season 6 at the moment, which I think they're saying is the last one. In particular, Kara G. that Canadian lady, who I must admit, I saw and I assumed, oh, she must be kind of, Asian background. They do get a lot of people who have sort of ambiguous, sort of, from their appearance, you can tell there are a lot of people who look like half sort of kids or whatever, which I guess is a good proxy probably for what most kids are going to look like in the future. Turns out she's actually a Native American, or Native Canadian, I suppose you'd say. A lot of people loving that. But to me, her character, drama, like what I love about The Expanse, apart from the fact the whole world building and everything is great, is that it's not centered on one character. It's centered on an ensemble of so many great characters. And she's got one of the more minor ones, but all the characters have all this depth and are great. And she is just like awesome. The Expanse is awesome. If you watch this, you probably know that I already know that I recommend it. But yeah, these are all things that were great from 2021. And I can't wait for 2022. Like I say, I think it's all going to get better. Do read my blog. Infamy, they've got it. They've all got it. Infamy. Yeah. So anyway, that's all the topics. I am 10 minutes over, 15 minutes over. Jesus, I always am. But, it's been an awesome year. It's going to be an awesome year ahead. Hang around, spend it with me, follow me on Twitter. I've got nothing else to do. As you can see, I'm here every week, 10:30 p.m. Japan Standard Time. Final look through the comments. And then, thank you, Aaron, so much for going and digging up the links. I would love if people would check out the blog. It is a bit stream of consciousness, but I actually really got a good feeling writing something for the first time like that for a while. So, yeah. Final look through. So, just going for the orange comments, but great to see so many people there in the chat. DJ Sunnyside Up, it's the surfer in me to get all that blue. Yes, come to Kochi. We'd love to go surfing in Kochi. I would love to do that, actually. I'd also love to get down in Miyazaki surfing sometime, but I know Kochi has great waves. I would love to do that one day. Thank you for the invite. I will take you up on that. Aaron, thank you so much for posting the link. Sainted Sir, Happy New Year indeed, and thank you for the comment there. And Wingstar, great to see you, Wingstar. Great to see so many people rocking, and even later on, we've got the Pharaoh's Cat. Awesome space tourism. Have I seen Don't Look Up? Yes, I saw Don't Look Up. I loved it. It seems to polarize people. Some people really don't like it. It hurts. It hurts because if I'd shown that, if you'd played Don't Look Up 10 years ago, people would have taken it as like another Idiocracy or Wag the Dog, like an over-the-top sort of, this kind of ridiculously overdone parody. The problem is it's not anymore, right? It hurts because it's so spot on with the world that we are in right now. I loved Don't Look Up. I loved it. I thought it was a great movie. I would give it 4 out of 5 stars. So yeah, I'd watch it again. That good. So yes, indeed, the Pharaoh's Cat. Yes, indeed, fascinating. But with Japan denying their heritage, indeed. AV84K, The Views of Tokyo, 1913 to 15 by Denis Shiryaev on YouTube might be an interesting short video. These are the ones that have been brushed up with AI. Is that right? That they look really smooth and really good, I think. I know the ones that you're talking about, but yes, indeed. And Odie Jr., yes, thank you. Sorry, a bit scattered, a bit over time, but just tons of good stuff to talk about. Hope everybody here has a great week. Brianna W., did I talk about Drive My Car yet? I have not talked about Drive My Car yet. What do you mean talk about Drive My Car? Hit me up on Twitter and I will make sure I figure out what that is and talk about it next week. Simon Ochanama, also great to see you. Everybody, please have a good week. Do take care. The Omicron is everywhere. The Rona. Don't get the Rona. Take your shots. Stay at home. Wash your hands. Wear a mask. Do all that good stuff. Stay safe so that we can hang out again next week. And have a good one. Follow me on Twitter. All that good stuff. Like and subscribe. Like if you liked. I do appreciate it. It does help the video. Remember, it's not monetized, so I do appreciate the likes. Boom. Peace. A lot to talk about today. Hey, have a great 2022, everyone. See you later. Any stream.